Sometimes the scariest things don't happen on dark holidays or cursed dates. They happen on ordinary nights, the kind when you least expect anything to go wrong. When the world is quiet and someone knocks on your door. My name's Jason Miller. I live with my wife, Laura, and our 8-year-old son, Ben, in a small town called Maple Creek. It's the kind of place where people still wave to each other, where nothing bad ever really happens. A quiet, safe town, or so I thought. It was early March, cold, damp, a night that smelled like rain. I was sitting in the living room, finishing some late work on my laptop. Laura was asleep upstairs, Ben too, when I heard it. 3 slow, heavy knocks on the front door. I glanced at the clock. 3:04 a.m. At first I figured someone had the wrong house, but when I looked through the window, I saw 2 men standing on the porch. They were wearing police uniforms, dark blue, perfectly neat, but off somehow. Old-fashioned, like something from another decade. I couldn't see a patrol car, only faint flashes of red and blue light in the fog, far down the street. The taller one stepped forward and said, "Sir, we're with the Maple Creek Police Department. There's been an escape from the local penitentiary. We need to check your home just to make sure you're safe." His voice was calm, too calm, like he'd practiced that line 100 times. I opened the door slightly, keeping my hand on the lock. "Sure," I said slowly. "Can I see your IDs?" The older man smiled, a stiff, hollow smile. He lifted a badge. It caught the light, and I realized there were no numbers, no name, just a blank silver plate. "This is a new issue, sir," he said smoothly, part of the department's updated security program. Something inside me twisted. Every instinct screamed that something wasn't right. "Hold on," I said, forcing a polite tone. "Let me just call the station to confirm." They didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, perfectly still, watching. I shut the door and dialed the precinct's non-emergency line. 1 ring and then static. "Maple Creek Police Department." The voice was faint, warbled, like through an old radio. I started to explain, but before I could finish, the line went dead. Then from the door, a click. Someone was testing the handle. "Laura," I whispered, "wake up." She came out of the hallway, groggy, confused. "What's wrong?" "There are 2 cops outside," I said quietly, "but something's not right." Ben peeked out from his bedroom. "Dad?" "Back to bed, buddy," I said softly. "It's fine." We turned off the lights. I peeked out the window again. The porch was empty. No men, no lights, just fog. We waited nearly 10 minutes. Nothing. Finally, Laura whispered, "Maybe they left." I nodded but walked to the door anyway. When I touched the handle, it was ice cold, and on the glass beside it, I saw smudged fingerprints. Long, uneven, like someone had pressed their face and hands against it, trying to look inside. The next morning, I called the police station again. The officer on duty sounded normal at first, but when I asked if any patrols had been sent to my street last night, he hesitated. "No, sir," he said finally. "We didn't have any calls or units in your area, and there's been no prison escape either." I told him the names they gave me, Officer Hale and Officer Turner. There was a pause. Then quietly he said, "Sir, those names belong to 2 of our officers who were killed in the line of duty 28 years ago." I hung up. For some reason, I went outside. The air was still damp, the grass wet. By the bottom step of the porch, something metallic caught the light. I picked it up. It was a badge, cracked down the middle, old and rusted. On the back were 3 engraved numbers, 304. Since that night, I've heard those 3 knocks every spring. Always at 3:04 a.m. I never open the door, but sometimes when I look out the window, I see 2 figures standing on the edge of the street, watching the house. No car, no sound, only faint flashes of red and blue in the fog. They're still checking houses, I think, making sure everything's safe. My name's Evan Clark. This happened 2 years ago, but I still can't drive alone at night without checking the rearview mirror every 30 seconds. I was driving back from a late shift at the gas station outside Pine Hollow, a small town in northern Illinois. It was one of those endless highways surrounded by nothing but trees, no lights, no houses, just the sound of tires on asphalt. Around 1:30 a.m., I saw flashing red and blue lights in my mirror. I wasn't speeding. Still, I pulled over to the shoulder. A police car stopped behind me. At least, that's what it looked like. White sedan, spotlight, decals, the whole thing. Only, the pattern of the lights looked slightly off. Cheaper, like a Halloween setup. A man got out. Tall, broad shoulders, early 40s. His uniform was wrinkled, but he wore it with authority. He walked up slowly, flashlight in hand, shining it straight into my face. "Evening, sir," he said. "License and registration, please." I handed them over. My hands were shaking a little, not from fear, just nerves. He glanced at the papers, then at me. His badge caught the light. It looked real, but the number was scratched off. "You heading home?" he asked. "Yeah, just left work." "Where's home?" Pine Hollow, about 10 minutes out." He nodded, then leaned a bit closer to the window. His breath fogged the glass. "Why don't you step out of the car for me?" That's when I felt something in my gut. "It wasn't right," I asked, trying to sound calm. "Did I do something wrong, officer?" He stared at me for a few seconds, too long, then said, "Just need to check your trunk. Routine stop. Step out." But there was no radio on his shoulder. No partner in the car. No real police license plate. I looked past him. The car didn't have a unit number. No stickers. No department markings. Just a plain white sedan with a magnetic decal that said police. That's when it hit me. He must have noticed the look in my eyes, because his expression changed. From bored professionalism to something colder. He tilted his head slightly and smiled. I said, "Step out." I hit the lock button and shoved the gear into drive. The engine screamed as I floored it, kicking up dirt and gravel. In the mirror, he stood in the headlights, not moving, just watching me go. Then the red and blue lights flickered on again behind me. For 10 minutes I drove like hell, hands slipping on the wheel. He followed, lights flashing, horn blaring. I didn't stop. At the edge of Pine Hollow, I saw a real patrol car parked by a diner. I pulled in, nearly clipping the curb. 2 real officers came out immediately. The fake cop's car slowed down across the street, then turned off its lights and disappeared into the woods. The officers checked my story, called it in. There was no unit matching that description, and the description I gave, the man, the fake car, matched a wanted suspect they'd been hunting for months. He'd pulled over 3 people before me. 2 were never found. That night, when I got home, I sat in the dark for hours, replaying every second in my head. How easily I almost stepped out of that car. How normal he looked. Now every time I see flashing lights behind me, I freeze. Because sometimes, it's not the cops pulling you over. Sometimes it's someone wearing the wrong uniform. And on an empty highway in the middle of nowhere. No one can tell the difference. My name is Rachel Morris. I live in a quiet, suburban neighborhood just outside a small town called Brookwood, Ohio. It's the kind of place with trimmed lawns, golden retrievers, and weekend barbecues. A place where you feel safe, where you think nothing bad could ever happen. That night, I was home alone. My husband was away on a business trip, and the kids were staying at my mom's. I was in the kitchen, drinking tea. When I heard the doorbell ring, it was late, around 10:40 p.m. I thought maybe it was a neighbor. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There was a police officer standing there. Uniform, hat, badge, calm smile. I unlocked the chain, just a little. "Good evening, ma'am," he said. "Sorry to bother you so late. We've had reports of a suspicious vehicle in the area. I just need to make sure everything's okay here." His voice was calm, professional. He held a flashlight and a small leather folder. Everything looked perfectly legitimate. "Can I see your ID?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. Flipped open the folder. I saw the badge, but no photo inside. Just a seal and a name typed in bold. "Everything's fine, ma'am," he said, smiling. "Just a quick check. If you don't mind, I'll take a look around your yard. Maybe the back door." He reached for the handle. I stopped him. "Wait, I'll just call the station to confirm." He froze for a second. Barely noticeable, but enough. His smile didn't change, but his eyes did, colder now. "Of course," he said softly. "Go right ahead, ma'am." He stayed there, completely still, watching. I dialed 911. The dispatcher answered almost immediately. I told her that an officer from Brookwood PD was at my door and asked if they had anyone in the area. There was a pause. Then she said, "Ma'am, we have no patrols in your neighborhood right now. Please do not open the door. Stay calm. A unit is on the way." My stomach dropped. He was still smiling outside. "Everything okay in there, ma'am?" he asked through the door. "Yes," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Just a moment." I stepped back slowly, holding the phone tight. Then he knocked again. 3 slow knocks, thud, thud, thud. "Ma'am," he said, voice lower now, almost gentle. "I just need to come inside." Only for a minute, I didn't answer. Didn't move. Then I heard gravel crunching, a real patrol car pulling up. Red and blue lights washed over the front of the house. The man turned his head toward the window, and in the next second he was gone. No footsteps. No sound. The real officers found fingerprints on my doorknob and a single boot print on the porch. They matched a suspect wanted in 3 home invasions in a nearby county. He'd bought the uniform and badge online. 2 women hadn't survived. Now when I hear a knock at night, I don't go straight to the door. I check the window. I wait, because now I know. Sometimes danger doesn't hide in the shadows. Sometimes it smiles through the peephole. My name is Claire Wilson, and I'm a nurse. I work at a small hospital, St. Mary's Medical Center, in a quiet town called Ridgeford, Michigan. Night shifts are usually calm. Just me, the on-call doctor, and a single security guard downstairs. The halls are silent after midnight. Just the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the smell of coffee and antiseptic. It's peaceful, in a lonely kind of way. Around 2:15 a.m., the buzzer at the front entrance went off. I walked down to reception and saw a police officer through the glass doors. Tall, broad-shouldered, in uniform. He was speaking into the intercom. "Good evening, ma'am. Officer Danvers, Ridgeford PD. We're looking for a suspect involved in an assault nearby. He may be injured and could come here for help." I pressed the button to reply. "Of course, officer. Would you like to look around?" "Yes, ma'am. It'll only take a few minutes." I unlocked the door. He stepped inside. Calm, polite. But there was something about him. Maybe the way he scanned the hall, slow and deliberate, like he was memorizing every exit. "Are you alone here?" he asked. "No," I said. "We have a doctor on call and a security guard downstairs." He nodded. "Good. Could you call your guard up here?" I picked up the radio and paged Dan, our night guard. No response. "He's probably making rounds," I said. The officer looked toward the stairwell. "Mind if I check upstairs?" "Sure," I said, though my stomach was already tightening. He moved slowly, methodically, checking doors, peering into rooms. Every so often he'd ask in that same flat tone, "Anyone working in here? Anyone else on this floor?" But then I noticed it. The badge on his chest looked too shiny, like cheap metal, and the radio on his shoulder had no antenna. My hands started to sweat. At the end of the hall, he stopped at a locked supply room. "What's in there?" "Just storage," I said. He reached for the handle. "Open it." "Why?" He looked at me, expressionless. I said, "Open it." Before I could answer, the intercom buzzer rang again. Loud, sharp, echoing through the hall. I jumped. "I'll go check that," I said, backing away quickly. When I reached the reception desk, the front door was wide open. Cold air drifted in, and on the floor was Dan's radio. Then I heard the doctor's voice over the hospital PA system. "Claire? It's Dr. Martin. What's happening down there?" "I hear footsteps." I grabbed the mic to answer, but all that came through was static. Then silence. A shadow moved in the hallway. He was coming down the corridor. No hat, no radio, a scalpel in his hand. "You could have just opened the door," he said softly. "Now it's too late." I ran, darted into an operating room, slammed the door, twisted the lock. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Outside, slow, steady footsteps. Then his voice, calm, cold. "You think the police will save you?" "I am the police." 10 minutes later, sirens, real ones. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Someone kicked the door open. The officers found me crouched under the surgical table, trembling. On the floor, a scalpel, and bloody boot prints leading toward the back exit. Later, they told me the truth. There had been a serial killer in the area for weeks. A man posing as a police officer to gain entry into buildings and homes. He'd already killed 3 people. He bought his uniform online. They found our security guard Dan in the parking lot. Single gunshot. His own weapon. Now during night shifts, I lock every door twice. If someone knocks, even in uniform, I call 911 before I answer. Because now I know, the most terrifying monsters don't hide in the dark. They wear the badge.